I think I got interested in politics when I was at university in America during the era of Watergate, when, like many university students, whether they were Americans or foreign students, we were riveted by the hearings on Watergate, especially with Senator Sam Ervin. So I remember myself, every night I would be sitting next to the TV set watching. And then, of course, in the end, Woodward and Bernstein of Washington Post managed to topple the president. So that got me interested in journalism and in politics. And always, I think journalism and politics are intertwined. So I found that very interesting.
And on that note, so the Watergate occurred roughly towards the 1970s, and that was when you were at university. Just looking back at the longitudinal developments in Hong Kong's political trajectory, you've got 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. Some have said that towards the end of the colonial era, there was a gradual but apparent wave of democratization introduced by or induced through a series of reforms under the last few governors of Hong Kong. Others have said, no, the fundamentals will remain the same. It's still just ultimately a bit of a sham because of the appointment systems where you had appointment of legislators instead of actual elections that elected them to the positions. So what do you make of the progress in democratization between the 1970s, 80s, and early 1990s before the handover in 1997?
Well, Hong Kong only started to have elections in a very limited way 1 year after the signing of the Sino-British Joint Declaration. And those were functional constituencies and a limited election by electoral college. I think the timing of all those things were dictated by China, agreed to by Britain. Hence, we only started having the elections a year after the Joint Declaration in 1985. And then, of course, once they opened the Pandora's box, people wanted to have real elections. So there was this struggle, the campaign for direct election in 1988, because initially the Legislative Council terms were only 3 years. So you have 85, and then the next election is 88. So people were campaigning for direct election in 88. And of course, I guess unbeknownst to the people at the time, but very soon it became clear that the Chinese government did not want to see Hong Kong having a direct election of legislators before the Basic Law was promulgated. And you know, the Chinese and the British signed the Joint Declaration in '84, and then China said they're going to embark on a 5-year process of drafting the Basic Law, and the Basic Law will be promulgated in 1990. So the timetable's all set. So, and then without revealing to the people, I think the British then agreed with the Chinese that before 1990, there will be no direct election, even if it is for only a very small number of the members of the Legislative Council. But the public didn't know it, so we were all fighting for even a small number, but a beginning of direct election to LegCo. And of course, the British creeped and crawled and cringed and craved to try to say there's no popular demand. And then they actually hired a polling company called AGB McNair to conduct a survey of Hong Kong people to see whether they want direct elections or not in 1988. But if you look at of course, the outcome was the people didn't want it. Maybe about only 10% wanted it. But if you look at the questions that the people were asked, there was not a single question on, do you want direct election or not? And then at that time, we had already started going to the United Nations Human Rights Committee, and there was a hearing on Hong Kong. So there was a delegation, about 10 of us, journalists and other activists. We went to Geneva, and we actually brought along the AGB McNair survey to the committee members. Of course, they were facing the British and the Hong Kong government. And the members look at the thing. I remember during the hearing, and of course, all the committee members are independent experts and very eminent jurists, And one of them said, you know, I've been a jurist, lawyer for many years. And if someone had asked me this question, my answer would be, I don't know what you're trying to do. And the British were so embarrassed. But of course, they would not tell the UN or tell anybody that they had secretly agreed with Beijing that Hong Kong's not allowed to have any member directly elected by the people before the Basic Law was promulgated.
I want to pick up on a point you said about the earlier years of the SAR government, and also indirectly, I guess this vindicates, you know, what I think your approach as a politician has always been, that protests and political agitation or contentious politics must be peaceful, must be rational, must be non-violent. And in Cantonese, allow me to insert a Cantonese phrase here, it's "wo lei fei fei." And
Fei fei means no
swearing as well. And I know you don't swear, you don't like swearing.